transgender people are different as well. We're all just different. We should be accepting of each other and loving of each other and give each other equal rights and laws and respect. But when it comes to athletics, there's a reason why men don't compete against women. And I had this bizarre conversation with this guy once, who has this TV show where he kind of debunks things. But when I got him alone to talk about these things, like without a team of writers, when you leave someone to just their opinions, and he had these sort of very progressive talking points that he would kind of blurt out. But then when I started challenging him on these and going deep, you realize that he didn't even really think about this. He just wanted to appear that he was progressive, which I am. I am a progressive person. I know I look like a meathead, but I'm very progressive. Yeah. I just look at reality, though. I grew up with martial arts and with fighting, and I know there's a fucking radical difference between males and females. It's radical. It's not small. It's not subtle. It's radical.
You mean in physical strength, or do you also
in physical strength and violence and psychology and attitude and in competitiveness? It's radical. There's a radical difference. And also, there's a spectrum. And some people are far more feminine than they are masculine, and they happen to have penises. And some women are far more masculine than they are feminine, and they have to have vaginas. But it doesn't change the norm. It doesn't change, and it certainly doesn't change on the high ends of these spectrums.
That's
when
right.
you look at the high ends of these spectrums, are ultra female versus ultra male, you're looking at two radically different things.
Yeah, and I really like what you said about. I'm getting emotional again. I like what you said about just accepting and understanding each other.
Yes.
That, to me, you don't have to accept bad behavior. You don't have to accept hurtful behavior, but it does help us to really work hard to understand it. And those are the extremes of behavior. But you're right, we're different. And I think it's interesting and it's exciting the way that we're different, the ways that we're different. And testosterone really does help to explain so many of those differences. So understanding that hormone helps us understand each other. And it helped me, even though I have been teaching about this stuff for ages, writing the book and especially reading about the transgender experiences helped me to have sort of this epiphany. See how emotional I am, right? I'm like ultra emotional. My husband is a British philosopher, and he is not. He doesn't get angry. He doesn't really express a huge range of emotion. He's a wonderful guy, and I love him, but I've always kind of picked on him and thought there was something wrong with him for not being more emotional, not being able to have these long conversations about emotions and psychology and what happened in his childhood to make him like that. And I have a temper. He doesn't have a temper. I cry during lecture and can't even, and cry at home and can barely control that. My epiphany was, I'm not better than he is because I'm so in touch with my emotions. I have issues. Like, he probably has issues too, but he doesn't have to come to be closer to me in my way of being in the world. I need to work on accepting who he is. He's an awesome guy. And I was always trying to get him to be more like me. And I think women really want men, if they're in heterosexual relationships, to be more like them emotionally. But I had this epiphany, like, no, it's working out, and our marriage would be better if I just shut up about some of the getting him to be more emotional all the time. I need to take the gifts that he's giving me, and I have to look at myself and where my emotionality, which I'm, getting emotional again. But that was all through learning more about this hormone and what it does. It's just who he is as a man. It's not that all men are that way. Right. But it did help me, just the understanding helps us to accept each other. And that's sort of one larger point in the book that I don't try to make so explicitly, but I hope it helped me, even though I have been teaching about this stuff for ages, writing the book and especially reading about the transgender experiences helped me to have sort of this epiphany. So you can see how emotional I am, right? I'm like ultra emotional. My husband is a British philosopher, and he is not. He doesn't get angry. He doesn't really express a huge range of emotion. He's a wonderful guy, and I love him. But I've always kind of picked on him and thought there was something wrong with him for not being more emotional, not being able to have these long conversations about emotions and psychology and what happened in his childhood to make him like that. And I have a temper. He doesn't have a temper. I cry during lecture and can't even, and cry at home and, can barely control that. My epiphany was, I'm not better than he is because I'm so in touch with my emotions. I have issues. Like, he probably has issues too, but he doesn't have to come to be closer to me in my way of being in the world. I need to work on accepting who he is. He's an awesome guy. And I was always trying to get him to be more like me. And I think women really want men, if they're in heterosexual relationships, to be more like them emotionally. But I had this epiphany, like, no, it's working out, and our marriage would be better if I just shut up about some of the, getting him to be more emotional all the time. I need to take the gifts that he's giving me, and I have to look at myself and where my emotionality, which I'm, getting emotional again. But that was all through learning more about this hormone and what it does. It's just who he is as a man. It's not that all men are that way, but it did help me, just the understanding.
Swear to God, it's hot as balls in this studio right now. Oh my God. I might have to keep the AC on in this bitch 24 hours a day, so when I come home it'll already be cool in here, yo. I turned the AC minutes ago and tried to wait until it cool off, man. It's still hot in this bitch. Still hot in this bitch. I picked up another commission too. One of my high school classmates, yo. A lot of people I know personally in life buy art from me, yo, and I love that experience when because I've been the art guy my whole life, and so now we're adults and people are seeing the value of art, or they want to make a memory into something special, or they want to gift somebody with a special gift. And all the homies who know me from back in the day, they reach out to me like, yo, nigga, you still do art? Of course you know I do art. I need you to paint something for me. And so I got one of my good homies, yo. Do a project for him next.
To accept each other, and that's sort of one larger point in the book that I don't try to make so explicitly, but I hope that, and again, I don't mean we have to accept bad behavior, but we can try to understand these extremes of male behavior that are disturbing, and more disturbing than extremes of female behavior. I can cry and have a fit, but I'm not raping anybody. Well, because that's an extreme of, that's a bad extreme of male behavior that we need to understand. But let's understand where that's coming from instead of shutting down the conversation or shaming men for just being men. All men are being blamed for the extremes of male behavior. That's ridiculous, in my view.
Catch new episodes of the Joe Rogan Experience for free, only on Spotify. Watch back catalog JRE videos on Spotify.
So, Pillow Cube just sent me this cube-shaped pillow, and I'm totally excited. Let's see what's inside. First off,
yeah, so I'm looking at this painting right here that I just finished. Finished it yesterday, but didn't sign it just because I wanted to look at it some more and make sure I don't see anything, and I actually do see something that I'm gonna touch up, and then I'm gonna work on this for like 5 minutes or so, and then I'll put my signature on it and move on to the next one.
Joe Rogan Experience.
What made you want to write about testosterone? What was the motivation behind this?
So I'll give you the short story first, and then later I can give you the longer story.
Give me the longer story.
The longer story involves chimpanzees, so that's kind of fun.
One of my favorite subjects.
But the short story is that I teach at Harvard about hormones. I teach a course, behavioral, well, it's on behavioral endocrinology. It's called Hormones and Behavior. And I've taught that for a long time now. And I got my PhD at Harvard studying testosterone and behavior, studying sex differences in the way we think and process information. And I just love the topic. I love how much understanding testosterone helps me understand the world, understand men. I'm not a man. I don't really understand men or how they work, but understanding this hormone really has helped me a lot. And then in teaching about endocrinology, and specifically testosterone, I get so much feedback from students about how it changes their lives, changes how they understand themselves personally, how they understand their relationships, how they understand the world. And it's empowering for them, and it's been empowering for me. And so I just always had this natural intellectual enthusiasm for this topic. And but I'd say in the last 5 years, I felt like the science was coming under attack, and there's been kind of a program to dismantle the science of testosterone and how it shapes behavior, particularly the evolutionary basis of behavior. Has kind of come under attack. The idea that sex differences are grounded in biology, and I know that testosterone is a really important part of that. And there's a movement to kind of discredit that science or downplay the importance of biology and specifically testosterone in our lives, and especially in sex differences. And I'm fascinated by sex differences, and I'm fascinated by how evolution shapes sex differences across different species and how it works. And so that's ultimately why I wrote the book, because I kind of want to get all the science out there and kind of push back against what I see as an attack on really good science. There's nothing wrong with...
No. I ain't got time to do an art show for Juneteenth, yo. So I got a show up now. Well, it was for the first of the month, for the first 2 weeks of June. So I'll take it down this weekend. But for Juneteenth, my organization, we have a block party planned. And, you know, I'm going to have to be at the event. I'm going to have to be at the block party, helping monitor shit and keep shit organized. So I ain't going to have time to, like, really show art for Juneteenth. But, that's why I did my art show earlier in the month. So that was the 2 events that we had. The first event was my art show that my organization helped put on. And then our second event for the month will be Juneteenth. I normally do a Black History Month show. So in February, I'll put up a big show. Hey, babe. But yeah, right now, it's all focusing on the 19th. Trying to get shit ready for that. This is the Black Scranton board. And our board, we're talking about the times the DJs are going to be there, what time the ribbon cutting is. We've been talking all day. We've been talking for weeks now, but we even got damn, so much. So this is a layout of our lot. You can see the white square. That's the building there. This is our parking lot. We're already trying to figure out where the vendors are gonna go, where the food trucks are at, resting area and the bathrooms. But then I told them, like, they forgot something, yo, because in this corner right here, like, we got a bouncy house coming. So we gotta have somewhere for our bouncy house. We got the parking lot in the back. This is going to be staff and volunteer parking. And then on the side of the building, we'll have food trucks line up on that side of the building. So our whole block, yo, like I said, we're throwing a little block party. So it's a lot of moving parts. We're going to have food, we're going to have vendors, we're going to have games, we're going to have DJs, we're going to have activities in the bouncy house for the kids. So all hands on deck. All hands on deck for the block party. Everybody got to be there, so I won't be able to do nothing else that day, you know what I'm saying? On the 19th, like, my whole day is already taken up. I got to get there early to help set up, and probably stay late to help clean up a little bit. But we got some skate nights coming up, too. We rented out the local skating arena. It's supposed to be tonight. Phew. I know I heard something fall over there. But yeah, tonight we're gonna be at the skating arena. I'll probably pop down there for like an hour or so just to like, once again, just show my face. Since I am a board member, we need all the representation we can. A lot of people be wanting to meet us and talk to us. Like we got one of the homies, another artist I know, he did a mural of Martin Luther King, and there's gonna be like a little dedication ceremony, and they want, like, the people who helped organize that is called, their group is called Scranton Tomorrow. And Scranton Tomorrow reached out to the Black Scranton Project. It was like, yo, we got a mural of Dr. King. Would y'all like to have any board members come down and say something about how monumental this is to kind of do this type of, you know, public artwork in our city, and how much this can educate and uplift the community. And everybody on our board were like, nigga, we busy. We busy. You know what I'm saying? Motherfuckers be reaching out to us for black representation. You know what I'm saying? When they need some black folks to do something, they be like, yo, hello, Black Scranton Project. So just going to the skating arena and meeting like other local people who may come and just talk about our organization. You never know who you may run into. I'm kind of nervous though, because I did have that surgery last year. But I be jogging a little bit, you know what I'm saying? I don't think like I hurt myself on roller skates. I might skate.
Understanding who we are from a biological point of view. And I think we should all be open to that and learn as much as we can about who we are and how we work.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I also think it's fascinating when you watch the attack on the science of biology, the science of how, if you like, I think that if we were an objective observer, like something other than human, and we're watching human beings, we would be really interested in the sex differences between the male and the females, and why are there's like this real clear pattern of behavior on both sides. Obviously there's a spectrum in that pattern, but depending upon the levels of hormones and the genetic variants, there's a lot of like consistency, and what is causing this, and what is it about male behavior that leads to this, and female behavior that leads to that. But then you get into this weird thing where ideology has somehow or another overtaken science with a lot of human beings today. So they're willing to abandon science if it's inconvenient for their ideology. And it's very strange, because you see really intelligent people doing this.
Yes.
Which is where it's really spooky, because they're scared of being chastised and attacked on Twitter. They're scared of being canceled. So they're scared of going against the mainstream, which is ideologically based instead of scientifically based.
That's right. And I think the fear is that the science is getting in the way of the ideology. So I agree with most of the goals of the people who are ideologically motivated. We want to reduce human suffering. We want to make sure that we have equal human rights for people who have all kinds of differences. And so I agree with all that, but I don't think that if science tells us that some of these differences are grounded in biology, that means that these traits that maybe like extreme male aggression. That doesn't mean that that's immutable. I mean, we have tons of evidence that it's not immutable. Humans have control over their behavior. It depends heavily on the culture. So denying the importance of, say, testosterone in male aggression isn't going to change the way that sort of differences in our natures or the impetus for males to feel more than females, that they want to be physically aggressive or to respond aggressively in certain situations. And I like that you said that you implied that there's lots of overlap in behavior between males and females and the degree to which that is grounded in biology. So the point isn't, and I just want to make it really clear at the beginning, it's not that females are like this and males are like that in humans or in other species. And especially, culture plays such a huge role in how we develop and how we express ourselves. But even apart from culture, there are differences on average. So there are some females who are highly physically aggressive, and there are many males who are really emotional and sensitive and totally peaceful. Can I say that you just said you tear up sometimes?
I cry all the time.
Okay.
So I cry mostly for happy things.
Okay. So yeah, no, and I just cry when I'm moved or passionate. I cry a lot, and I actually talk about that in the book because there's a relationship with testosterone there that we can talk about later, which is really interesting. But the point is that, my book T is not about, not trying to explain why males are one way and females are another way, but why we're different on average, why we have somewhat different natures. And testosterone is, to me, the most powerful way to understand those differences in our natures, from an evolutionary point of view, and looking at how we as animals, as mammals, try to maximize our reproductive success, right? And that's what testosterone does, is it helps males maximize basically the number of offspring they have through increasing mating opportunities. It doesn't mean that males are only interested in having tons of sex and tons of sex partners, but they're definitely more interested in that than females in humans. And in many other species where increasing the number of mates, yields reproductive benefits for males, but not females. And that's what sex hormones do. Estrogen, progesterone do similar things in women, but it doesn't motivate us to fight aggressively for mates.
Right. Clearly, if we were looking at this again as an objective observer, we would see all this. There wouldn't be any debate. We'd be like, this is fascinating. Well, this is why. They've only been around for a couple 100,000 years, and for a long time they were eaten by jaguars, and so they had to make as many babies as possible in order to ensure survival of the species. All this makes sense. Catch new episodes of the Joe Rogan Experience for free, only on Spotify. Watch back catalog JRE videos on Spotify, including clips, easily, seamlessly.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
During my day, Joe Rogan podcast by night, all day.
Hi.
Welcome. Thanks for doing this.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
so much for having me.
My pleasure. I'm excited to talk about this. What made you want to write about testosterone? What was the motivation behind this?
So I'll give you the short story first, and then later I can give you the longer story.
Give me the longer story.
The longer story involves chimpanzees, so that's kind of fun.
One of my favorite subjects.
But the short story is that I teach at Harvard about hormones. I teach a course
I got you right now,
on
golfer.
behavioral.
Calm down, bro.
Well, it's
I
on
got you
behavioral
right now.
endocrinology. It's called Hormones and Behavior, and I've taught that for a long time now. And I got my PhD at Harvard studying testosterone and behavior, studying sex differences and the way we think and process health better, helped me to understand my husband better, and really just had a big impact on me personally. I found this evidence really sort of moving and powerful. But one thing I want to say before we talk about that is that one of the biggest influences on human and non-human sex differences is differences in the womb and what happens to us when we're inside our moms as fetuses developing. So males have testes that produce male levels of testosterone in utero, and that testosterone that's called a perinatal effect or an organizational effect. So that's early on in life. We start out right from the get-go with these very different levels of testosterone, and that shapes the brain and body. So it helps to develop the genitalia, internal and external genitalia. So it changes male genitalia to, say, form the penis and internal structures. But at the same time, it shapes the brain. So the cool thing about sex hormones, which are steroids, is that they can just get right into the brain and alter neural development. And that's what happens early on, is we have these big differences that shape childhood behavior. So everybody pretty much can accept that little boys behave differently on average, again, from little girls. Boys are definitely all over the world much more interested in rough and tumble play. So, I'm somebody who used to love to climb trees. I played baseball. I was pretty aggressive, I would say, which is a little bit more on the masculine side. So I'm just illustrating that, again, this is a spectrum, but we have these differences where boys, including my son, who does not like baseball and is not as kind of probably boyish in some ways as I was, but he tackles his friends. Like, one of his favorite things to do is to roll around on the floor and try to pin each other down. Boys do this a lot, and girls typically don't. They do other stuff on average. That seems to be consistent with what we see in non-human animals and a result of early exposure to testosterone, because the levels, so in boys, levels are high at certain periods in utero and then go up again for a short period of time after birth. That seems to have these effects on the brain that shape that rough and tumble play. And it's not an accident that boys have higher sort of aggressive physical play, because that's what, in a different environment, in our sort of ancestral environment, though they're practicing those skills that they would have needed for physical male-male status competition. So in our modern environment, males have different ways of competing that don't necessarily require physical competition, but it requires other kinds of behaviors that testosterone also seems to promote. I think this is a long-winded answer to your question.
No,
which
it's
I no
great.
longer
Don't worry about that.
So about the trans thing. So the reason I'm going into what happens prenatally is because the evidence that we get about testosterone from looking at transgender people is really interesting. However, if you are a female to male transgender person, and what happens if you decide to alter your hormones, not all transgender people will want to alter their hormones. Some people just will change sex socially. They'll change their pronouns. They might adopt the clothes, or behaviors of the opposite sex. But many people will want to alter myself better, help me to understand my husband better.
Yo. Hey.
Sorry to bug you after your birthday.
No, it's not
Not too convenient. Just real quick, so I just spoke to Grayson a little bit. It sounds like he's back in. I'm just gonna try to help him get the insurance thing figured out.
You know what? If you add outreach on your insurance and then with their insurance, Liz told me that they double checked it, and maybe for him, because they said since I'm an outreach employee, and I'm working on the mural, I won't need my own insurance.
Okay, so does Grayson still need it?
Yeah, I think he may need it, and the only reason I'm getting the pass is because I'm an employee.
That's awesome that they're helping you there.
Yeah, but I gave your guy Mike all my information. He never contacted me back, which is kind of weird because he asked for all my information, like my social and everything. But that was a couple days ago.
Yeah, he's got a lot on his plate. If you bug him, he gets the shit done.
All right.
But it sounds like you don't need it, right?
No, I don't need it.
Yeah, I kind of wouldn't worry about it. Yeah, that's awesome, man. That was taking a big chunk of your cutout.
Yeah.
I know we were kind of banking on my policy working in it. Obviously didn't. Yeah, so for him, he wants to do the limited one. So I found this this place that'll do like policies by the day. It's
wow.
like it's way more. It's like for 10 days it's like $200. Mine's like 600 for a year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, damn.
Like it's like a crazy markup. But like those 200 out of the cut isn't that bad. And I told him that like I know I said like maybe different numbers in the meeting, but I think we can do this in like 6 days. So if we're all on it at the same time, like really like. So I'm going to recommend that he just gets like literally 6 days of coverage, and then if I'm wrong on the time estimation, that's on me, and I'll do like extra work to get it finished up. You know what I mean?
And then I was just thinking too, if he has to kick out like $200, since I initially thought that I was gonna have to purchase insurance, and now that I don't, I'll throw $100 towards his.
All right, sick. I might be open to doing the same. I think put it 3 ways. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm going to recommend he does the 6. So I just need to know. I don't know, like the exact days that we're starting. I know we said it's a meeting. I don't have it with me though. So
It was
21st, I think.
not next
22nd.
Tuesday, but the following Tuesday. What is that? Let me look at it.
22nd.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to start the 21st. We get the list on the 22nd, right?
Yeah.
And then, so that means we get it back on the 29th, which means that's 7 days. So I'm thinking 21 to 28.
That sounds good. That sounds doable.
Okay, 60. I'm going to lock that in with Grayson, let him know. Thanks for your love. I appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you later, bro.
Peace, Steve.
Peace. Yes, sir. About to get this mural done. Get that big payday. Bruh. Can't wait. So 21 to 28 is our time frame to get that mural done. I feel like we got that, bro. We got 3 artists on that shit too, and not like just like helpers. Like the 3 of us, we're all fucking artists. Only thing is, I've done some murals, but I've never done anything as big as this. It's like this is a whole side of a fucking 2-story building. Like I've never painted anything this big, so it's gonna be some learning experience for me. The other guys, they already been doing big ass murals like this, so I'm gonna learn something from them. Like I say, ain't nobody no fucking flunky. It's like 3 legit fucking artists about to bang this fucking mural out, yo. Alright, that's a wrap. Let's get a picture of this thing so we can post this on our social media. Social media. To post some new art. Why? The world must see this magnificent masterpiece created by none other than myself. The prince, the genius. Oh, my turn for you? Damn, bro, try to say something else, bro. You probably can't. Because your first comment was dumb as fuck, bro. You don't insult the art, bro. I mean, you see the title of the stream, man. This shit is art and education. As soon as you insult the art, bruh, you done fucked up. You know you fucked up, right? You know you fucked up, right? Try to say something else. Oh, you fucked up. You know you fucked up. fucked up. My enforcement. It ain't even funny. Feel me? No ha ha, he, my guy. Oh ho, ha ha. None of that. You sound dumb as fuck. Oh, the painting don't start just like that, man. We on to the next one, buddy. Yo, turd, you can't say nothing? Oh, ha ha, ho ho. Hee hee. Lame ass comment got you fucked up. I know you still watching the art though, cause that shit amazing. You just want to see what I'm gonna do next. You know what? I want to see what I'm gonna do next. I be surprising myself sometimes. I surprise my damn self. Oh damn, I already took it off. Let me crop this picture. Get this shit uploaded real quick. You know, fast as I can, people, fast as I can. Trying to show people, hey, everybody, look, people. I just finished another one. Alright, need people to go on to my damn Facebook, my Instagram, like this painting coming. Alright, so just uploaded this to all my social media platforms. That's dope. Bro, I was killing it on the art show. Hey, y'all don't be dressing that fresh. Ooh, I throw that shit on too. I don't be in paint clothes all the time. Alright, so I've only been here 40 minutes. Doing my thing, man. Alright. Playing the social media game crazy. Okay, got all that nicely uploaded. Damn, look at your boy. Yeah, this shit on Facebook everywhere. Already got comments that fast. I just put this shit up there. People like, oh man, that shit hot, son. That shit dope. I got somebody telling me to hurry up. Jesus Christ. Alright, so this goes in the finish pile. Love that. Yo, my finish pile, I got hundreds of paintings I've done, yo. I've probably done almost 100 paintings for myself, maybe. I'm getting close to 100 paintings for myself. But all the paintings I've done for other people, I've done hundreds of paintings, yeah. Alright, okay, wait a picture. We on to the next one. So what I want to do is go ahead and clean this palette off. I keep some colors on there probably. I really do want to start from scratch on this real quick. I'm gonna keep that black and white on there though, because that shit is fresh. And that little bit of red. Save that as well.
It really just had a big impact on me personally. I found this evidence really sort of moving and powerful. But one thing I want to say before we talk about that is that one of the biggest influences on human and non-human sex differences is differences in the womb and what happens to us when we're inside our moms as fetuses developing. So males have testes that produce male levels of testosterone in utero, and that testosterone that's called a perinatal effect or an organizational effect. So that's early on in life. We start out right from the get-go with these very different levels of testosterone, and that shapes the brain and body. So it helps to develop the genitalia, internal and external genitalia. So it changes male genitalia to, say, form the penis and internal structures. But at the same time, it shapes the brain. So the cool thing about sex hormones, which are steroids, is that they can just get right into the brain and alter neural development. And that's what happens early on, is we have these big differences that shape childhood behavior. So everybody pretty much can accept that little boys behave differently on average, again, from little girls. Boys are definitely all over the world much more interested in rough and tumble play. So, I'm somebody who used to love to climb trees. I played baseball. I was pretty aggressive, I would say, which is a little bit more on the masculine side. So I'm just illustrating that, again, this is a spectrum, but we have these differences where boys, including my son, who does not like baseball and is not as kind of probably boyish in some ways as I was, but he tackles his friends. Like, one of his favorite things to do is to, like, roll around on the floor and try to pin each other down. Boys do this a lot, and girls typically don't. They do other stuff on average. That seems to be consistent with what we see in non-human animals and a result of early exposure to testosterone, because the levels, so in boys, levels are high at certain periods in utero and then go up again for a short period of time after birth. That seems to have these effects on the brain that shape that rough and tumble play. And it's not an accident that that boys have higher sort of aggressive physical play, because that's what, in a different environment, in our sort of ancestral environment, though they're practicing those skills that they would have needed for physical male-male status competition. So in our modern environment, males have different ways of competing that don't necessarily require physical competition, but it requires other kinds of behaviors that testosterone also seems to promote. I think I'm just a long-winded answer to your
No,
question.
no, no,
which
it's
I no longer
great. Don't
remember.
worry about that.
So, okay, so about the trans thing. So the reason I'm going into what happens prenatally is because the evidence that we get about testosterone from looking at transgender people is really interesting. However, if you are a female to male transgender person, and what happens if you decide to alter your hormones, not all transgender people will want to alter their hormones. Some people just will change sex socially. They'll change their pronouns. They might adopt the clothes, or behaviors of the opposite sex. But many people will want to alter their hormones to be consistent with those of the opposite sex. So if you're male to female, that would mean blocking testosterone and increasing estrogen. And if you're going the other way, female to male, it would mean blocking estrogen and jacking up your testosterone. So we can look at that evidence, but we have to remember that once people transition, say if a male transitions to female, that person, so we'll call that a natal male, had high testosterone in utero. So even though as an adult they might not have testosterone, and we can look at what their behavior looks like as an adult when they block testosterone and start living as a woman, they still there's something different about their brain. So that their brain has been masculinized in utero. And female brains, you can say, have been feminized or not masculinized. Female brains are not exposed
Can I stop you for
to
that?
hormones. Yeah.
When you say their brains have changed or their brains have developed this way, what are we basing this on? Is this fMRI? Like, what method are we using to examine
Yeah.
whether the brains are different?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So most of the evidence that we have is from non-human animals, that we have clear differences in the brain, that one area of the brain is called the sexually dimorphic nucleus of the preoptic area of the hypothalamus, and the hypothalamus is an area that basically controls the action of the pituitary, which is kind of the master gland for controlling all of our many hormones in our body. And the sexually dimorphic nucleus, so sexually dimorphic means basically different sizes or shapes in each sex. So testosterone increases the size of this. We know that it increases the size of this part of the hypothalamus, and then that predicts male sexual behavior, mounting behavior, say, in rats. So we know that sex differences in testosterone in many non-human animals do help to explain differences in the size of different areas of the brain. But there are also really small differences in just parts of the brain and how neurons, say, branch or make connections. So they tend not to be, in humans, as far as we know, big, obvious differences like the SDNPOA, but there are some suspected differences in human brains that are due to testosterone differences, but we don't have that kind of evidence. I guess I'm not an expert on the brain differences, but it's subtle differences in, say, branching or neuronal connections or the birth and death of neurons in utero. So differences in testosterone can cause differences in the population of neurons or the number of cell bodies in different areas or the way that they make connections.
Well, the question is, like, as they transition, so if someone transitions from male to female, how are we measuring the fact that their brains have differences than people that were genetically...
Oh, right. Yeah, we don't. We don't.
No.
It's an assumption that because they were exposed to, so a male is, because he has testes, he's exposed to male levels of testosterone in utero. So the assumption is that their brain has been masculinized. But it's a good question because there's a lot of controversy around brain differences and whether there really are any. But my understanding of that literature is that brains can be sexed by experts in humans with 85% accuracy, but I don't think there is one really loud signal there that can be attributed to testosterone exposure in utero. But the point I was trying to make is just that there are probably differences in the brain that were shaped during that organizational period in transgender people, so that we shouldn't necessarily assume that if they change their hormones in adulthood, that they will be sort of just like the other sex psychologically, because there may be other differences in their brain due to having high exposure to testosterone.
Okay.
But I can tell you some of the differences that we then see once they transition. Did you have a question?
No, you can go ahead.
Okay, so one of the biggest, what do you think one of the biggest sex differences is in human behavior or human psychology? What would you?
I don't know. Would it be aggression?
There's aggression, yep. That's big. There's one other thing.
Another thing?
Yeah,
What?
sex.
Sex. The males want more sex?
They do.
What about females that want a lot of sex?
Yeah, there are lots of females who want a lot of sex, but on average, everywhere, males want more sex and they want more sexual partners.
I read something once, I don't know if you're aware of this, but a study out of, I think it was the University of Rome,
Yeah.
where they were examining a link between promiscuous women and their offspring being male, having a disproportionate amount of gay men in their offspring. And they were thinking that it was some sort of a variant in the X chromosome, that there was something about the X chromosome that was leading them to be much more attracted to men than normal. And that this is what led these women to be promiscuous, and it led their sons to be gay. Which sounds like madness. Right?
I did not hear that. I
Let's see
would
if I can find
want
that.
to see
Yeah, I'm sure
replication.
you would. You
I
work
mean,
at Harvard.
That's interesting.
Well, you're a moron like me, and you read something like that, and you go, oh, okay.
No, that, I mean, I haven't heard anything like that. When I see one study that has that kind of sort of explosive finding, I want to see more
data. Here it is. Researchers by Andrea Camperio Ciani from the University of Padova in Italy. That's right. So the findings and link between homosexuality and female fertility strongly support the balancing selection hypothesis, which suggests that a gene which causes homosexuality also leads to high fecundity or reproduction among their female relatives. The team noted that
fecundity is different from number of sexual partners.
But they had it connected to promiscuous women.
Okay,
maybe this is
you don't have more babies
I
necessarily by having more partners. So.
Right. The team noted, but you have more of a chance of having more babies if you have a lot of partners.
I don't think you do.
But you probably have more sex, like naturally. If you're with one partner, as time goes on, we all know you have less sex. But if you have new partners all the time, you have sex constantly. So if as a woman is having sex every day with different people,
okay. Well, that's highly promiscuous. Is that what we're talking
about? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Super hose. The researchers analyzed the personality and fecundity of 61 females who were either mothers or maternal aunts of homosexual men to 100 females who were mothers or aunts of heterosexual men. Originally, the team thought the reason why the women who inherited the gay man gene might have more babies is simply because they increased androphilia, what is that? Or attraction to men. That's it, there it is. Thus making the male inheritance homosexual and the female inheritors more promiscuous.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just super skeptical about
Keep that up, Jim.
Everything.
Scroll down because there's a stupid ad in the way over here.
So the idea is that since they're really attracted to men, their sons are going to be really attracted to men?
The idea it's a variant of the X chromosome. Okay. There's something about the X chromosome
what does that mean, variant of the X chromosome?
I don't know. I'm an idiot.
Oh, no, you're not.
However, after analyzing the personal characteristics of 160, see, here's the however, that probably puts it in line. Of 161 female maternal relatives of homosexual and heterosexual men, researchers changed their hypothesis and suggested that rather than making the women more attracted to men and therefore more, the gay man gene appears to make female inheritors more attractive to men.
Okay.
Huh. So, well, how do they know that, though?
Okay, but females who are highly attractive, who have what we would call high mate value, tend not to be super promiscuous because they can get a high status, high investing male.
Right, that's
and you screw up that relationship if you're promiscuous.
Right.
Then you're no longer high mate value because your partner's going to question whether the offspring are his.
That's why I'm confused about how they switch, because it seems like they're 180 degrees from each other. If sexually antagonistic genetic factors that introduce homosexuality in males exist, the factors might be maintained in the population by contributing to increase of fecundity, greater reproductive health, extroversion, and a generally relaxed attitude towards family and social values in females of the maternal line.
Normally when I didn't close the fucking door, 'cause you think up being up here, it'll stay up here, but that shit go downstairs, Joe. I didn't close the door
You
when
would
I
think that if it's 2012, if there's something to it, it might have been replicated. And if it's just one study from 2012, you have to look at where it was published, where it was
That would be
cited.
hard to fucking breathe sometimes, Joe.
Are you Kelly?
Yeah. No, trust me.
Oh my gosh.
What car are you?
Well,
my big old list that were
part of
like
my family's
500
from
people.
Palermo, and part of my family's from.
I got through the first like 1-7,
Yeah.
and then I had
And
another
then a little
list.
bit from Ireland.
And
I'm
I'm
joking
like,
around about
I'm
my trust.
no,
But I always
1-7,
joke around
so
about how I
I'm
never
almost
trust.
done
I never
tomorrow.
buy an Italian car because they don't pay attention. And I like
What
really
kind of a car did you
tightening
buy?
the bolts down. German cars, get more engineered, more
Who's
like,
that?
rigid,
I trust her.
more disciplined.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like they're more structured.
Yeah.
Japanese
No,
cars are
I-
excellent. I love Japanese cars. Very structured,
Yeah.
reliable.
Japanese cars.
Italians are
Speaking
really
of
nice.
which, I found
But they're
other stuff
so
online.
Everybody know that shit, man. Japanese,
Yeah.
the Toyotas,
Yeah, and art,
Hondas,
food.
the Lexus, yo.
And
they're fun to hang out with.
Good cars,
Yeah.
man.
They're great.
So speaking of sex, the biggest effect of changing your hormones is changing yourself
my turds
sexually,
for you,
what you want sexually.
Mr.
So-
Golfer, you
And
be
I
pressed.
learned this. This is one of the most salient points from interviewing
Right?
the transgender people I interviewed, is how their sexuality changed. And it's also completely backed up by all the literature on transgender transitions.
Drink some more
And it
water.
sort
I
of
had a soda
confirms the
earlier. I had
stereotypes
two
about
sweet drinks. I had a smoothie and
testosterone.
a
So
soda
if
today.
you
Oh, that was a
are
smoothie. I thought it
female
was a
and
lemonade.
you jack up your testosterone to male levels,
Strawberry
it's a
lemonade, yo, that
huge
shit was so
difference.
good.
So the
It was
female
nasty.
body is very,
But
very
that energy
sensitive
boost, that shit.
That's
to
why I got that shit,
testosterone
yo.
increases
That's
because we have
extra.
so little compared to men. We have a minuscule amount, and so any little change will have huge effects. And so you have very dramatic effects on natal women who take a lot of testosterone. So first of all, their bodies change. They get jacked even if they're not lifting weights. They get a lot of muscle mass. They get facial hair. Their voice can deepen. And they, especially when they're first taking the testosterone, they're going through something like a male puberty. I don't know what your male puberty was like, but I bet you were totally horny. I'm just guessing.
For sure.
Like really kind of, and this is something I'd love for more people to talk about. I'm interested in what that is like because, yeah, I shouldn't talk about my own puberty, but yeah, that was a time when I was interested in sex and felt very different because my hormones were changing. You know, estrogen helped to make me a sexual being, but testosterone has a different effect. It seems to be more intense. And what was so interesting to me is the way that some of the people I interviewed for the book talked about how their sexuality changed, and natal females who took on a male identity started viewing other females, according to them, as objects, sexual objects. That they had so much lust, and this is not how all men are or how all trans people are, but this was the effect in the few months after increasing testosterone, sort of like a male puberty, which can feel overwhelming, where thoughts of sex are overwhelming, and that there's an intense need to kind of get some release. And there's a way that these trans men started viewing women, which was kind of alien to them because they hadn't looked at other people as sexual objects in that same way, but sort of a really intense need to get a release, and seeing other women as vehicles for that, and also orgasms changed.
So, but what do you mean by objects? You mean these
Yeah, I don't want to overstate it.
As people. Like,
I really don't want to overstate it and give the idea that trans. I want to be careful about this, and I hope that I'm not giving the idea that trans men suddenly are objectifying women. It's more that that women, natal women like me, don't really understand male sexuality, and that we think that men should kind of be more like us and respect everybody, and why can't they just treat me like a human being instead of looking at me as a sex object, right? So women get frustrated because men look at them as sex objects.
Right, but conversely, women dress very provocatively and still think that
Yes.
they don't like that men look at them like
Yes.
sex objects when their cleavage is showing and they're wearing skirts and their legs they basically have a vagina curtain on and their legs are hanging out, and
So that's
it's very odd because they're obviously they're accentuating this.
Yes, but I think that
sexuality.
women don't understand the effect that has on men or trans men, because they don't feel that same urgency, right?
Right.
And what I learned, I just was really interested in understanding what that's like. Instead of shaming men for feeling that way, I want to understand what that feeling is. Like, I really want to get it.
Right.
And so talking to people who transitioned, who are natal females, who are then like, holy shit, this is what it's like to live as a man and have this sexual desire that was foreign to them.
Right.
So there was that piece of it. That's a major piece. It does soften with time. So that's really just sort of the male puberty part of it. And that's an intensity that females, I think, don't get. But then there's this orgasm thing, which I thought was really interesting. So the male orgasm apparently feels very different from the female orgasm, and people...
This is one thing that I actually never considered until somebody said that shit. Yo, Kevin, and it was Kevin Samuels. I don't know where he get it from, but he said that strictly in terms of reproduction, like the female orgasm is not necessary. Like that shit does not contribute to procreation and the reproduction of life. A woman don't need to have an orgasm, but in order for life to continue, for all of us to be here, a man gotta nut, yo. A man gotta have an orgasm, yo. And that shit crazy.
who transitioned talked about how their experience of orgasm changed. So do you want to hear about that?
Yes,
Okay.
I do. I have so many questions.
So I can say, so I've had an orgasm. So
Whoa.
I can see I have.
Crazy.
And so for men might not understand that for women, it is a full body experience that takes a while to build up, it plateaus, but it takes a while to kind of terminate. And sometimes after sex, men are like, oh, done, blah, 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 I'm falling asleep, I'm gonna go do this or do that. And women are like sort of luxuriating in the afterglow, right? And it can feel insulting or hurtful for women when the guy is like, I'm out of here, or I'm on to something else now. So it seems that that full body feeling and the whole body being a sexual organ is a function of testosterone differences, because when for trans men, the experience changes from the full body experience to a sharper, more intense, more acute, more time limited experience. So it's more intense at the peak, and but it
yet they're
seems.
still getting an orgasm in the same method that a woman would get an
What do you mean
orgasm, because
method?
they still have the same equipment.
No.
A trans
Yes.
a trans
Yes.
man.
Yes.
So they change.
You want me to work magic like D1 painting?
Where, that's the one of his girl or whatever.
His girl's mom, I think. But there's like, that's the only picture they have of her, so must not be around anymore.
Right.
Orgasm, but you still have female equipment,
Yes.
essentially.
Yes. So but the
Interesting.
experience changes, and the body. So, and if you go the opposite direction, you soften that intensity,
Mm.
and there's more of the whole body is
But this is-
responsive in a way.
You're confusing the shit out of me.
Okay, sorry,
So this
I'm
is,
probably
if you go the
confused.
other way, you're talking
Yeah.
about male to female.
Yes.
And then male to female have orgasm, but are they keeping the equipment? See, this is
You
where I
can
get-
keep- so
yeah,
that
but you
is-
can't. How are you getting an orgasm without that?
You mean if you have a penis?
If you don't anymore.
Well, most trans people now are keeping their genitalia. They're not
Is that
surgically.
really? Can we say that?
I can say it because I just did, but and I believe that that's the case, and I think the trend is changing. Yeah, but I should have some evidence.
But
behind it.
that is. But this is where I'm confused.
Yeah,
Is
so-
that essentially the only way to achieve orgasm?
You can still have an orgasm.
But see, that's the thing too. A man can have more of a transformation than a female because there's no way for a woman to grow a dick that they can use. Not a usable, functional
It's easy to
penis.
chop your titties off. That's
Yeah,
about it.
but that's what I'm saying. But a man can get boobs and invert his penis and make. Now he got a fake vagina in the butthole. Like he just look like a woman now. But a woman, she gonna have a vagina like she can't close up the one hole. And that's why I say that's why trans men to female feel like so much more.
Yeah, there's way more trans men. than
Yeah, and it's
female.
like, oh, you have to respect me because this and that. It's like,
Oh,
no,
I'm
it's
sorry, trans woman.
it's only because you can have more surgery and look more like the opposite sex than the women can, because they
But and
can.
women get plastic surgery more often than men do to begin with, so it's easier probably to already make a man look like a woman versus making a woman look like a man.
Yeah,
Either way, though, you gotta take hormones and shit.
exactly, and that part too. And then if you stop taking your hormones, and then what? You start to reconvert, yeah.
Listen, whatever you want to be called is fine by me, but that shit is confusing.
You remove your genitalia?
So that's a whole other area.
Is she Chinese?
You're not just
No,
removing the
she's a straight
genitalia, you're creating
heterosexual woman married. She's
female,
Harvard
something like female
professor.
genitalia. And yes, you can
She
definitely
studies,
have orgasms.
Hormones and
But I don't know
genetics,
as much about
testosterone,
exactly
and
how that
important
works.
Definitely.
Testosterone is to make
Well,
you a
I
woman,
had
make you a
a
woman.
trans woman come talk to my class who had had the surgery and discussed in graphic detail what her orgasm.
She said one of the main things is testosterone kicks in vitro when you're still in the womb, and that's how you produce either a penis or a vagina. And they say that alone affects the way your brain develops. So a boy develops a boy's brain, and a girl develops a girl's brain. And then later in life, if you want to say, oh, I feel like a woman, so I'm gonna do all of this and I'm gonna act like a woman, but your brain was already developed in the womb to identify with the body you have, which has
Unless
testicles.
you're intersex and you have both, then you can choose what you want to be. That's like the one thing where I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
you could choose if you want to be a girl or a boy because you were born with both. But that's the only time. But yeah, I mean, boys and girls, even when you first get, like, when women are pregnant, boys normally have a lower heart rate and girls normally have a higher heart rate. Like, as soon as a baby is starting to form a gender, you see the differences, like heartbeat, obviously penis versus vagina.
Yeah, this shit is crazy.
We're like,
Hmm.
so yes,
Okay. That's where I'm confused.
yeah.
This is probably my favorite.
But so
position.
female to male,
But let's
they
assume that they're
sharpen
keeping their
and change.
genitalia.
Yeah, let's.
Yeah.
Well, for female and male, they definitely are, right?
But this is consistent with the literature about sex differences in orgasms and sexual experience,
Mhm.
where it's more it's more sort of acute and less concentrated on the whole body for men than it is for women.
So essentially, the testosterone is leading the body to a very specific kind of experience during orgasm.
It seems that way. It seems that way, and that's something that I thought was fascinating. So the orgasm, but just in addition to what it's like sexually to be in the world
Mhm.
and how you view the sex that you're attracted to and what the urgency is like. And I still, as a woman, I don't really understand. Obviously, I don't understand what it's like to be a man or have high testosterone or what it's like to be a man sexually in the world. And that's part of why I'm interested in the hormone. And aggression, interestingly, does not seem to, there's not good evidence that men,
You already
that
gave me the
trans
deposit,
men
so
become much more aggressive, or that trans women
do
become
what I do,
much
shit.
less aggressive. There are some anecdotal changes in anger and emotions. So the emotional piece seems to be that, so I talked a lot, I asked questions about emotional expression, partly because I cry. I was telling you earlier, I tear up a lot when I am moved, and I seem to be moved all the time, and I can't control it. I cry when I'm teaching, which is really embarrassing, but I teach about what I think are really important issues.
You're a human, you care.
I care a lot, but I care so much that I just cannot control my reactions.
I think that's great. I think people are scared of that for some strange reason.
Yeah,
They think they're supposed to be stoic all the time. Or...
It's masculine.
Yeah.
So being stoic is masculine, and having a lot of emotions and expressing them is more feminine. Of course, again, this is a spectrum and there's lots of overlap, but that also seems to be a function of testosterone. So the people I interviewed described taking testosterone and then feeling that their emotions were blunted, they couldn't access their emotions, they stopped crying, and that anger was the only accessible, intense emotion.
That seems silly.
And
As
just
a person who's male, that's
yes.
silly.
So that was one person I talked to. That is not a universal experience, and there aren't big sex differences in anger in the first place. There are large sex differences in physical aggression, like really fucking somebody up is more of a, much higher rates of that in men. Killing people, that's basically all men. Like serious physical violence where you put yourself at risk, there's a large sex difference there. But when you sort of move to the middle and you're talking about anger and you're talking about throwing stuff and pushing and hitting, there's not a huge sex difference there, at least in terms of
lashing out with
interpersonal romantic relationships too. But that's another area. But so the things that change in transgender people, the biggest thing is sex and sexuality and sex drive. And then there's some evidence, a little bit of evidence about aggression, but that doesn't seem to be very pronounced.
What's always interesting to me that there's a lot of people that they sort of dismiss traditional gender stereotypes in terms of makeup and clothing, and then some of these people are actually not just dismissive of these stereotypes, but they seem to think there's something wrong with them. They're insulting of these things. They think that these things are in somehow or another holding back women or holding back men. And what's odd to me is that it's celebrated in transgender people. So whenever a trans woman is like wearing a ton of makeup and short skirts and a lot of like nail polish and big hoop earrings, everybody's like, you go girl.
Yeah.
No one is ever looking at that trans woman saying like, you are accepting these harmful gender stereotypes and embracing them, right?
Yeah,
It's part of what, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I do, and I think that's so complicated because if you have gender dysphoria, if you're really uncomfortable with your body and how it's sexed, and you desperately, you really go into puberty and you're horrified at how your body is changing because it doesn't represent how you feel, then I can understand how you want to adopt maybe an more extreme version of what you perceive the opposite sex to be like. So I get it, and I have sympathy for people who are suffering in that way. But you're right that there is a sort of stereotyping of the gender role, and that's it's just super complicated.
it is super complicated, and I also understand it, and I sympathize with them, and I support them. Go do that. Wear all the makeup. Wear all the fake eyelashes. Go crazy. But why do you give a shit when women do it? When biological women do it? Like, why does anybody care? Like, that's what they like. Like, there's clearly something different.
Right.
Like, look at you.
Yeah.
Okay, you're very conservatively dressed, but why do I see your whole arms? Like, what's that about? But it matches.
Because I'm psyched, because I work out.
Because you got the guns. But if I was dressed like you, it would be odd, right?
Oh,
if you were wearing a
men
dress.
wear tank tops and show off.
Very rarely. Not for formal things like this, or a podcast, or it would be odd. If someone just showed up here with a wife beater on,
I
it would
wish
be
that
odd.
weren't odd. in the book, that is something that I write about at the end. What I want for my son, here's where I start getting emotional. It's really important to me that he feel free to express himself in whatever way he wants. And I wish, this is what I get upset about when I teach, that there are these restrictive norms, and people who feel different feel they just have to break out of that norm instead of feeling comfortable just being who they are with their bodies. And I wish that he could wear whatever clothes he wants and be accepted. And but there are these norms that we still have, and there is this confusion where women are stigmatized for being some women are stigmatized for being ultra feminine. But women have a lot of leeway. Women can be super masculine, we can be ultra feminine, it's basically fine. Men have much more narrow constraints that they have to operate in, because it's, women are seen as the weaker sex. So if you're a man and you are more feminized, and even as little kids, little boys who grow up to be gay are more likely to want to play with girls and play with dolls and wear dresses, and they are bullied for that, and they are tortured.
I don't know, man. I got an older sister. I was raised by my grandmother, my older sister, and my cousin, my female cousin. All of us live together. Then my other cousins who were always around were my cousin Nikki, my cousin Chris, my cousin Shonda, and that's Black Scranton. But then, so I came up around a lot of girls, and I played with my girl cousins and my sister all the time. My sister taught me how to braid hair and double dutch and do the little hand games. And I don't know, I still, that shit never made me want to be gay, though. I don't know.
No, but I do agree with her on one thing, is that when you are a man, you have to be a certain way, and it's for men, it's just just suck it up. Which for women, dolls and being a mother and a wife is forced on us at a young age, so we both have it bad. But as a gay man, if you're not fully comfortable in yourself, I think it's very hard, because either you have to pretend to be masculine and to like women, or you have to suppress who you are so you're not bullied.
Yeah.
We see a dyke walking down the street, it's okay, it's a dyke. But you see a world flamboyant gay dude, it gets more attention. Although now it's more accepted to be a trans woman than it is a trans man, like she said, but at the same time, I feel like a flamboyant gay man will get beat up quicker than a dyke chick, unless she running her mouth thinking she's a man, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel for gay people, though. I do.
Yeah, I get it,
Don't nobody just wake up and be I want to be gay.
Yeah. I know for a fact, I got gay people in my family, and they don't really, I don't know.
And my thing is, like what he was saying, you don't have to be, unless you're just that flamboyant person, you don't have to be that, hey girl, oh my god, da-da, all the time, because most women don't really fucking act like that. But, if that's who you are.
Those boys, some of those boys now are becoming transgender, so maybe it's, in some ways, they're becoming very uncomfortable with their sex because it's an extremely unpleasant experience, and then they end up feeling like they are the opposite sex because there isn't the leeway for them to just express themselves and be who they are.
Right. What I was getting at is that females in our culture are allowed to wear very little clothing at formal events. Like if you go to a restaurant and the man is wearing a suit and a tie and a jacket, the woman will often be wearing this vagina curtain, long legs, all exposed. You see her toes, you see all of her feet, and these strappy little shoes. There's a long cut where her full arms are exposed. Her breasts are at least half exposed, right? There's cleavage. I'm not criticizing this. I'm just, again, I'm looking at it like an objective observer. I'm on the outside.
Are you?
Looking. I'm trying to.
But are you objective?
This is what I'm saying. I'm looking at this like an objective observer.
Okay.
Like it's fascinating that you're saying that as females transition to males, they start objectifying females. But females that are just identify as female and are attracted to men often dress in a way that would make them much more sexually, if not available, much more looked at like a sexual object. And this is not all of them. I'm not generalizing. I'm just saying
Yes.
you do not see very many men out at dinner with short skirts
Yes.
on where you see their feet and you see all of their arms and deep into their armpits and you see a deep cut in the chest. It's odd, right?
Yeah.
Just as an objective observer, just looking at it like as looking at this
But
species.
sorry,
If I was an
why is it
alien from
odd?
another
I don't
planet,
see why it's odd.
because it's very different than males. It's hugely different.
But that has
Because
to do
what?
with sex differences in what promotes reproductive success, right? So, if women,
That doesn't make any sense.
No,
Here's
I
why
think
it doesn't
it-
make any
okay.
sense. Because if a
I
guy
didn't
showed
say
up
that- okay.
in short skirts, with a short shirt, with short skirts, we could see big muscular legs, and he had a tank top on where you could see his arms, and this low cut thing where you could see his chest. That would be a masculine man that would be more likely to provide you with.
he'll show up in his
healthy-
Maserati. He'll show up in his Maserati and his
We're not
expensive
talking about a
suit.
vehicle. We're talking about
But-
clothing. We're talking about clothing. We're talking about a stark difference in the way males versus
Yes.
females dress.
Yes.
Where females, although you're saying they don't want to be sexually objectified or they don't realize they are, and female to male, when they start taking testosterone, are more likely to objectify females. It's a weird thing. And again, I'm just
Yeah.
looking at this for what it is. Humans have these strange patterns with males and females, and females show way more of their bodies, even in formal settings.
But so why do you think that they show more of their? Why do you think that is?
I'm asking you.
I think that the patterns of attraction differ in humans because it's adaptive for males to seek out females who have high reproductive value. And our reproductive value has more to do with our physical health than if a female is seeking a mate. She wants somebody who's high status, who's healthy, but who can provide for her and her offspring, on average. But these are we have different mating psychologies on average. And so for me, it's more important that both sexes want partners who are healthy and relatively attractive and smart and kind, right? So that's well established. But there are these differences in which sex values physical attractiveness more, and that's males value it more because it has more to do with female reproduction. So females do better when they live a long, healthy life, and they want to advertise cues of youth and health. And
It's
that's
such a stark contrast.
yeah. But I think for males, it's much more important to be. For women, the emphasis is more likely to be on status and success
quick
and
time lapse.
resources. And in our society, that's money and cues of high status. So men are going to advertise that more than women, just on average. But yeah, our culture has really amplified in some cultures, not everywhere. The expression.
And then there's also a reaction to that in other cultures, like Islamic cultures, where
Yes.
they cover the women up
Yes.
completely.
Yes.
And they take a completely opposite approach.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, right? If you look at the real raw difference between male and female wardrobe, it's very, very different. I mean, that might be one of the biggest differences amongst us, except for the fact that you guys carry the babies.
Yeah, and you have, culturally, it's really interesting to look at different cultures and how they vary in terms of those sex differences.
That's the way of the PlayStation camera. Sorry, guys, but
It's very
let me
good,
lift
right?
this up
Yeah.
a little bit, I guess.
Yeah.
Now, when you set out to do this, obviously you have a son, you're a woman, you're trying to understand these things. Like, did you approach this did you have a neutral position? Did you have a bias going in here? Were your biases confirmed, or were you surprised by anything?
So I try to have a neutral position. My position is firmly pro-science and the truth. And I'm extremely passionate about, I tear up talking about this, it's so important to me. But I think that it's respectful. It's the respecting another person's intelligence and ability to handle the truth, is so much more respectful than giving them information that might make them feel good. So, and I don't even remember what your question was now.
Whether you went in this with a
Yeah,
neutral
okay.
perspective.
So my perspective is that science is the way to get at the truth, and I love teaching this class because I get a lot of students who are not scientists. They don't like science, but they want to know about themselves and their bodies, and we don't just talk about sex and testosterone. We talk about hunger and diabetes and energy, and parenting, and how hormones shape all these different kinds of behaviors. So they love learning that, and it's not stuffy, it's fun, and it's accessible. And through science, they're learning about who they are and how they work, and they find that tremendously satisfying. So I'm going to tell a little story about science and what it meant to me and learning about testosterone, and that is, I describe this in my book. And when I was a grad student, I changed my career late in life, and so I was I guess I was in my very early 30s, and I got accepted to Harvard, and I felt like an imposter, like a lot of people do. I don't belong here. They made a mistake. So I'll just back up and say that I was not a stellar high school student. This is hard to admit to such a big audience because I teach at Harvard, but it's also a lesson. Like, I was at the bottom of my class in high school. I grew up in Weston, and Weston, sorry, Mass, yeah. So I'm just Weston because I know that you lived in Newton or something. And I skipped classes and just had like very little parental oversight, and was kind of a party animal, but kind of destructive. Like, and so I ended up failing gym and English, which is ironic because I just wrote a book and I'm extremely athletic. But so I failed gym and English. I just didn't go. I just blew it off, and I didn't know, which is a lesson because I have students at Harvard who are just totally freaked out about getting a B+. And I just feel like, I always tell them, like, look, you don't know where I came from and what you can change, and and plus a B+ is great, and you're going to be where you're supposed to be. Just like work hard and be disciplined, etc. So that was my high school experience. So and then I went to this great college, Antioch College, but then I didn't know what I wanted to be. But it was I graduated from college in 1988, and I was like really excited about computers. It's just so funny because computers were sort of fairly new, and I wanted a job where I could work with computers. So I just got this job in financial software, and there was like 10 years of just doing this financial software stuff. But I was just doing that so I could get my life together. I really had a lot of growing up to do. I just wanted to live on my own and be responsible and have a job and save money. But I traveled a lot and I read a lot, and then I figured out that I wanted to understand human behavior. So I quit my job and I applied to grad school. So that's kind of the long story about how I got there. But again, I just forgot what you.
So I asked you if you came into it with.
Right. But I think you asked something about the background. But so I was going to tell my story of what happened, why I felt like an imposter. It's partly because I didn't have the same background that my Harvard students have. They were all like had their shit together from the get-go, and they were, had these habits that enabled them to be successful. They were getting A's in high school and president of this and captain of that, and they're really mature, amazing students. And that just wasn't me. It took me a long time to kind of get to a place where I felt like I belonged, and I'm probably still not there. But so I was in this seminar, this grad student seminar. I think it was my first year at Harvard, and it was the evolution of human sexuality. And we were reading a paper on the evolution of rape, and there was this explanation about rape in the scorpion fly, and this implication that humans rape and men rape because it's an adaptation. If they don't have the resources to acquire a mate, they'll just use rape. And I had to comment on the paper. It was my turn to talk, and I was getting really emotional, and I felt I was pissed off, and I just was like, why isn't anyone else outraged here? You know, and so I remember just my eyes were watery and I was kind of angry, and I said, this guy's an asshole, like the guy who wrote the paper. And that wasn't, you know, an appropriate scientific response. That was an emotional response. And I will just say, if you jump forward, that kind of response now seems to be in many places okay, that you're supposed to have an emotional response, and if you do, then maybe we shouldn't have assigned that paper. But I have an experience with rape, and so it was upsetting to me. And I didn't want rape to be a natural part of human behavior. I wanted it to be something pathological. And so I was having a hard time analyzing the data, but the professor kept saying, look at the data, look at the data, look at the data. And this, to me, was one of the most formative experiences because it helped me realize how important the truth is, and that I can use science as a tool to get to the truth and understand myself and understand my life and understand even men or things that have been troublesome to me, even if it is painful. And that pain is okay, and I grew from that pain. And I learned that I can use science to understand, and ultimately it made me feel better and more empowered and more in control. So my bias is like so firmly with the science and how important it is, and how I was respected as a young scientist and given the truth and sort of really encouraged to look at the data and analyze the science instead of like give in to my emotions and believe what I wanted to believe. I don't want to give anyone else like a line of bullshit about anything, like that the sexes are on a spectrum, you know, that there's 5 sexes, because maybe that makes people feel good about being different. You can feel good about being different even with the truth that there are 2 sexes. That's okay. You know, we can talk about that.
Why do you think there's
confusing to be fed lines about science just because it makes people feel better.
What is this shift? Where do you think this shift happened in academia, where it became is it drive you crazy?
It's so sad and discouraging to me. I mean, it makes me want to leave. Like it's really, it's sad. Like socially, it's sad because I can't talk about what I want to talk about. I showed you some of the things my students said. Mm-hmm. They want the truth, but they're afraid to speak up. Sorry, I didn't.
Okay, it's okay.
Science really changed my life. It is what helped me go from somebody who was confused and had no direction and lacked confidence, you know, to like finding something that worked for me, finding something that's so powerful to explain the world. And
get down to the real science.
And I love helping other people do the same thing and have, you know, imbue in them a love for science and how powerful it is. And I just feel like it's getting shat on. Because I don't have a great explanation. I think social media has a lot to do with it, but
what aspect of social media do you think?
Well, that there's a lot of shaming on social media. There's a lot of shutting down conversation. If you have the wrong, you know, everybody's always advocated for certain points of views and had their agendas, right? And that's okay. But we should be able to have open conversations about people's points of view that should be informed by reality, right? But now I think we have the ability to make people feel bad about what they believe. Like, before I really understood how things work, I did teach a couple classes where I said that I thought sex was on a spectrum, and I remember feeling good about that. I remember feeling like my students really like that, and I feel good saying that. And that was sort of back in the day.
How long ago was this?
That was probably 7 years ago or
what
something.
What made you want to teach that sex was on the spectrum?
Because I thought that the features associated with sex, because they can vary so much. So sex is really about what kind of gametes you make, or what your gamete plan is, whether you have large immobile gametes, or whether you're going to be making
right.
small mobile gametes, so like sperm and eggs. That's really how sex is defined across the animal kingdom. It's not chromosomes, it's not sex hormone levels, it's not body types. That's not how you define sex. Those are features that are associated with sex, right? Yeah. And those things do vary. Even genitals vary. You know, you can have all these different combinations, right? So I thought, I sort of wanted to see things that way because I wanted to validate people who are different, because I really do care so much about, identify somehow, I don't know why, with, I think, people who are different, and I thought that that kind of validated people with differences. And have since learned that that's just not, it doesn't validate them, it's just not true. So I sort of studied it more and got more into the literature, and I realized, no, it's really about gametes, and I'm muddying this up to make me and my students feel good, and that's just not how it works. And I think I'm getting better at teaching what is now controversial information. My students are saying that they appreciate having someone who's willing to talk about sex and sex differences and admit that there are two sexes and to explore how that works. They're craving that. But I think that social media somehow, and I hate to say it's a generational thing. So I don't know if I'm just old.
Spillover. I think the academia spilled over into social media because people that were in school started using social media, and then the people who are overwhelmingly progressive that run institutions.
Yeah. Well, that people are just capitulating all over the place to a vocal minority.
Right.
So people who disagree, which is the majority, are being shamed.
They get scared and they don't want to lose their jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other ball of wax. But I am scared as a science educator because science is such a beautiful, powerful tool.
It's reality.
It's reality. And that story I told about that seminar, it's just so clear to me how important science is, and that you not twist the truth to try to make people feel better.
Right.
It's disrespectful to them.
Right.
And it doesn't solve problems in the world. You're not going to solve problems and make social progress
But you see
by
the
twisting
motivation of
science.
it, right? You see these people are compassionate towards people that
Yes.
want to
Yes.
be something other than they are. They have body dysmorphia or whatever you
And people want to
call
be
it.
their allies.
Yeah.
And I understand that. And it's not, I'm not smarter than they are. I'm not better than they are. I think I see things differently, but I think it's the wrong direction. And I'm scared, and I don't know what is going to put an end to this, but it seems to be getting worse and worse. And and my students are congratulating me for teaching just basic science now.
Like it's risky.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's strange. I mean, we change terms to make people feel better.
Yes.
As if somehow...
Chest feeder,
Yeah.
uterus haver.
Menstruator.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very strange.
But smart people think that is the right thing to do. And that does make me wonder if I'm just completely wrong. What am I missing here? These are smart people I respect, and I have questioned myself over and over again.
Or are they cowards?
I think they think they're doing the right thing.
Do they? A lot of them, I bet, don't. A lot of them, I think, they're, as you said, they're capitulating. I think a lot of them are really worried that this is the trend, and you can sort of get out the basic facts while sticking with the current ideology.
Well, they also get a lot of approval, a lot of social approval.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You get a lot of social approval, and more importantly, you avoid the criticism. You avoid the harsh hate.
I don't know. I think when you get that much social approval from other smart people, you feel like this is the right
Right, but if you
thing.
step out of that, then you get hated on.
Yes.
And that's worse. The social approval is great, and for sure people do that. They virtue signal left and right online. It's like one of the main activities on Twitter.
Yeah.
But the one thing that they happen to do while doing that is avoid the hate that you get from stepping on that third rail of, you when you step out of line and start saying things that maybe you actually believe but aren't a part of the orthodoxy.
Yeah.
Then you get hated on and piled on. And that's terrifying for people.
Yeah. And that's why I wrote the book, because it's not just social media. It is, I have air quotes here, it is the science that is coming out now there about testosterone. There are books coming out, and there are even studies coming out that are completely designed to show that testosterone differences are less than we thought, that there aren't really large sex differences in testosterone, that there's an overlap in testosterone that's just not that powerful and important, which means we can celebrate everybody as really being sexless, that there's no such thing as male and female. Testosterone really doesn't do that much, or females have much higher testosterone than we thought, and that just to blur the biological differences so that people, I guess the agenda is so that people feel more comfortable expressing themselves and their gender as they see fit, which I just think you should do anyway. Let's promote that. Let's just do
not
that.
True. That's the problem with it. I remember watching this YouTube video where this woman was talking about the differences between males and females. We're all cultural, and there's no difference between males and females, even with strength and athletics. And I was like, this is one of the dumbest conversations I've ever heard anybody speak out loud. This is so stupid.
So that athletics is a huge issue right now, because I wrote about this in the book also, because there's questions about whether trans women should be able to participate on women's sports teams. So the big issue is, well, does testosterone really confer an athletic advantage? And I write about these examples where people are arguing that it doesn't. It is insane. Of course it does. And it's not just common sense. There is tons and tons of evidence.
Find that quote. What was that tweet by Amy Alcon, who tweeted, I sent it to you before, about the differences in sprinting speeds. And she was talking about a women's world record, I believe, in a 400 meter.
That's 10%.
And
right?
that 300 high school kids that are boys every year break that.
Yes.
They break the women's world record for sprinting.
Yeah. No, it's testosterone. I mean, it's very clear that that's what it is.
The fastest female sprinter in the world is American runner Allison Felix, a woman with more gold medals than Usain Bolt. Her lifetime best for the 400-meter run is 49.26 seconds. Based on 2018 data, nearly 300 high school boys in the U.S. alone could beat it. That's fucking bananas.
Okay, but people are saying that some people are saying that advantage is cultural, and it's not. And I outline in the book pretty clearly what going through male puberty and having high testosterone in puberty, how that changes. I mean, you're jacked, and part of it's because you take testosterone, and so you can speak from personal experience about the change in your athletic capacity and muscle volume. It's all super clear. There's no doubt that you have increased hemoglobin, you have increased muscle mass, you have a larger body size, you have increased bone strength, all directly a result of high testosterone. And it doesn't all go away when you reduce testosterone.
In their defense, it doesn't all go away when you reduce testosterone, but some of it does go away.
Certainly. So the hemoglobin plummets. I mean, it depends if you're male to female, hemoglobin plummets, and hemoglobin is important because it carries oxygen, and it has to do with lung capacity and aerobic capacity and power, and so that's an important decline. But muscle mass does not. I mean, it's totally variable, but typically it does not go down to typical female levels. There's definitely an advantage that's retained there, and bone strength and height and grip and all that stuff is retained.
And just the shape of the bones, it's very different. It's a strange time when it comes to the reality of the differences between genders. It's a very strange time, because it doesn't like no one's ever said like men are better than women or women are better than men. We're just different things, and transgender people are different as well. We're all just different. We should be accepting of each other and loving of each other and give each other equal rights and laws and respect. But when it comes to athletics, there's a reason why men don't compete against women. And I had this bizarre conversation with this guy once, who has this TV show where he kind of debunks things, but when I got him alone to talk about these things, like without a team of writers, when you leave someone to just their opinions, and he had these sort of very progressive talking points that he would kind of blurt out, but then when I started challenging him on these and going deep, you realize that he didn't really think about this. He just wanted to appear that he was progressive, which I am. I am a progressive person. I know I look like a meathead, but I'm very progressive. Yeah. I just look at reality, though. I grew up with martial arts and with fighting, and I know there's a fucking radical difference between males and females. It's radical. It's not small. It's not subtle. It's radical.
You
When
mean
you're
in physical strength, or do you also
in
mean
physical
in
strength and
psychological-
violence and
Yes.
psychology
Yes.
and attitude and in competitiveness. It's radical. There's a radical difference. And also, there's a spectrum. And some people are far more feminine than they are masculine, and they happen to have penises. And some
Yes.
women are far more masculine than they are feminine, and they have to have vaginas. But it doesn't change the norm. It doesn't change, and it certainly doesn't change on the high ends of these spectrums.
That's
When you
right.
look at the high ends of these spectrums, like ultra female versus ultra male, you're looking at two radically different things.
Yeah, yeah, and I really like what you said about. I'm getting emotional again. I like what you said about just accepting and understanding each other.
Yes.
That, to me, you don't have to accept bad behavior. You don't have to accept hurtful behavior, but it does help us to really work hard to understand it. So, and those are the extremes of behavior. But you're right, we're different. And I think it's interesting and it's exciting the way that we're different, the ways that we're different. And testosterone really does help to explain so many of those differences. So understanding that hormone helps us understand each other. And it helped me, even though I have been teaching about this stuff for ages, writing the book and especially reading about the transgender experiences helped me to have sort of this epiphany. So you can see how emotional I am, right? I'm like ultra emotional. My husband is a British philosopher, and he is not. He doesn't get angry. He doesn't really express a huge range of emotion. He's a wonderful guy, and I love him. But I've always kind of picked on him and thought there was something wrong with him for not being more emotional, not being able to have these long conversations about emotions and psychology and what happened in his childhood to make him like that. And I have a temper. He doesn't have a temper. I cry during lecture and can't even, and cry at home and, can barely control that. My epiphany was, I'm not better than he is because I'm so in touch with my emotions. I have issues. Like, he probably has issues too, but he doesn't have to come to be closer to me in my way of being in the world. I need to work on accepting who he is. He's an awesome guy. And I was always trying to get him to be more like me. And I think women really want men, if they're in heterosexual relationships, to be more like them emotionally. But I had this epiphany, like, no, it's working out. And our marriage would be better if I just shut up about some of getting him to be more emotional all the time. I need to take the gifts that he's giving me, and I have to look at myself and where my emotionality, which I'm, getting emotional again. But that was all through learning more about this hormone and what it does. It's just who he is as a man.
Well,
it's not that all men are that way, but it did help me. Just the understanding helps us to accept each other, and that's sort of one larger point in the book that I don't try to make so explicitly, but I hope that behavior, but we can try to understand these extremes of male behavior that are disturbing and more disturbing than extremes of female behavior. I can cry and have a fit, but I'm not raping anybody. Well, because that's a bad extreme of male behavior that we need to understand. But let's understand where that's coming from instead of shutting down the conversation or shaming men for just being men. All men are being blamed for the extremes of male behavior. That's ridiculous, in my view.
I agree as well. I think I look at the human race as a puzzle that is whole, but every piece is different. And you cannot get a person, maybe like your husband, to be shaped like your piece.
That's right.
It's not going to work. But together, we fit together in some very strange synchronicity. It all works.
Beautiful.
It works.
That is beautiful.
But you have to find the right people. Like, if you found someone who didn't jive with you, it wouldn't work. And you can't change people. You can kind of influence them a little bit.
No, that's right.
But I think that's important in regards to everything. It's important in regards to gender, to transgender people. And if there's anything that upsets me more than anything, it's when I get misrepresented as being either hostile towards transgender people or dismissive of transgender people. It's not the case.
Is that because of the Fallon Fox thing?
100%, because I was furious at that. Because I know what that is. Here's what that is. That's someone who wants to win. That's someone who's sandbagging. You're pretending that you're not a male, and you're competing against females without letting them know. If you wanted to tell them that you were male for 30 years and became female for 2 years, and they still wanted to compete against you, we have no qualm. I'm all in.
Yeah.
But that's not what that is. When you say, I don't have to tell them because it's a medical condition, well, that's horseshit. And we all know it's horseshit.
Was that what happened?
Exactly. That's why I was so furious. Because she fought 2 people without telling them that she was a male for 30 years.
But she said it was a medical.
Yeah, she said she didn't have to tell anybody because it was a medical issue.
Okay.
Which is nuts. So that's why I got angry. And when I got angry, I
What
would
happened after
normally
that?
never get into that sort of subject. I wouldn't have such a strong opinion, but
Yeah.
it's in my wheelhouse. I'm a martial arts expert. I do cage fighting commentary. That's what I do. I've done it for more than 20 years. So like when that kind of shit happens and you try to tell me there's no difference between males and females, like, fuck you. I watch males and females fight. I've seen thousands of fights feet away from me.
But so, can I ask a sensitive question?
Yes.
Do you understand why people got upset about the way that you talked about it?
Oh, for sure.
Why do
Yeah.
you think they got upset?
Because I called her a man.
Would you
I
call
said,
her
you're a
man
fucking
now?
man. In the same situation, I would be just as furious.
Well, you could be furious, but would you use the same language, knowing that people who are listening, they're not her, but they are people who feel like a woman
Yeah,
and want
it's-
to identify
it
as a
was
woman? It's very painful. to be-
aggressively insulting, right?
Okay.
And insensitive, and also inflammatory in a way that would incite people who are transphobic,
Right.
which I'm not.
Right.
That's part of the problem.
I
is that
see.
even though I look like a meathead, like I said, I'm a very progressive person. I'm very open-minded. If I meet transgender people, I'm extra kind. I try to treat them with the most amount of respect because I don't want them to feel bad. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
But this is not one of those situations. This was a girl who got her face crushed.
Right.
And I'm like, you're a fucking asshole.
Right.
Like, you're not supposed to do that.
Right.
Do you know what sandbagging is? Sandbagging
Spades.
is like, say if we were in a martial arts tournament.
Okay.
And you were like a 10-year Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. But you entered into this tournament and lied and said you were a purple belt. And you started competing against people that only been doing it a couple of years and you
Yeah.
fucked them up. That's what sandbagging is.
Okay.
That was the general consensus for a lot of people, how they felt about people that transition and compete against females in a lot of sports.
Without
Without
making it
telling
known.
them. But that's in martial arts. In martial arts, I feel like it should be, it's like riding bulls. Do you choose to ride a bull? You have a massive disadvantage against that bull. There's no way you're going to hang on. The best chance you got is 8 seconds. Right? You want to do that? I'm all for it.
Have you ridden
Do you want?
a bull?
No, I have not. Have you? I'm all for anything that people want to do where they understand the risks where they're getting into.
Yeah.
I don't like deception. When someone tells you that they're a biological female and they're not, that made me furious because I knew the story and I knew this one girl literally got her skull broken.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is a person who's probably going to be injured for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
Like, and from deception. Like, had she known that this was not a biological female that she was competing against, maybe she would not have taken on that bout. That's what made me
Right. Well,
furious.
you want people to have the truth.
Exactly.
Yeah, no,
but now when it
yeah.
comes to sanctioned events like powerlifting, there's a giant issue right now with the Olympics where
Yes.
they're allowing a transgender male who's breaking all kinds of world records compete in the
Trans female.
I'm
Trans
sorry,
woman,
you're right,
trans
you're right. Trans woman.
Yes.
Transgender male to female, sorry. Who's competing against females and breaking, well, this is also part of the problem, right? You don't see the opposite. There's not a lot of
No.
trans males that are kicking ass.
No.
It's kind of crazy.
So what do you think should
What about that? What about women?
Trans people should compete against trans people. If there's so many of them that we have to change all these rules, why not have a transgender league? Why not have a transgender division? We have 2 divisions, right? There's a reason why we have 2 divisions.
And
Why?
honestly, like,
For fairness.
if you're a transsexual,
Men and women don't
you
compete
announce
against
that shit.
each other
That's how you
for what
get
Amy
killed,
Alcon highlighted.
And
It's
that's
just
what
not-
he's saying.
it's
Oh,
just- it's not-
he got all this backlash about criticizing the trans person, but when you go into the story, it's because they lied and fought a woman and fucking broke her fucking skull, gave her a skull
Right.
fracture.
And that's what I'm saying. Like even sexually, like I would be pissed if I've been courting somebody or they've been courting me for several months, and then we go to get down and they don't have the proper part.
Like, oh, I got this dildo.
Like, and that's cool. Like, do your thing. But like, damn, no warning. You just gonna. That's what you're gonna do. Like, you're not a man. I expected you to be a man. We can't reproduce. We can't. We can't be married and be husband and wife. So.
Alright, I got the shit done today. Finished up one, signed that, posted it to social media. That's getting much love. My man in France already shared that shit to his French people. He shared my artist, yeah. I really appreciate that dude, yeah. And got started on the next one, and got the sketch for the next one. Yo, this boy is humping today. All after work, yo. Did all that after work. And then tomorrow, I drive the truck over to Scranton, take my lunch break, snatch all my art down. I don't know if I can bring the art and the easels back at the same time, because I ain't want them easels to poke a hole in nothing. But I'll see how I can manage, maybe. But I definitely don't want to make 2 trips. But I could, but that'd be a lot too. On lunch break, if I just organize everything and take my lunch to leave the easels at Black Scranton, and then come back after work and pack up all the paintings and bring everything back that way. Okay, I got the tables, and some of that Black Scranton stuff is still there. Damn, it's just not the art. I may have to bring my art home. Pack my art up on lunch, bring that shit home, and then just have to go back over there and get the rest of that shit. Cause I ain't going over there on Saturday or Sunday.
You better go tonight.
We got skate night tonight. That shit getting started in a few. You don't wanna go skating? Well, you ride to Scranton and grab them down paintings. Alright, ain't nobody in here but peace. Catch y'all next time.